Okay, so up to this moment, the term path of least resistance to me has this negative, wimpy connotation. And what I mean by that is I've heard it used in the past as, oh, he always takes the path of least resistance. He never stands up for himself to, say what he wants, and he lets people run over him and that kind of stuff. So I'm having some resistance
yes.
to this
We can imagine
term.
that you would.
Now, when you say path of less resistance, I'm fine. But this path of least resistance, I can feel this negative.
Well, we understand why the path of least resistance doesn't appeal to you as a race, because you've been convinced that you are here to prove worthiness and that you should not do it the easy way.
Mm-hmm.
You have been taught against the path of least resistance.
Right.
And yet, everything in the universe functions with the path of least resistance. That's like saying that as law of attraction is summoning to you what you're wanting, we want you to get this sense that you've asked and this summoning is occurring. And so if you would just relax and let it come, it would come. And you say, but no, it must be harder than this. I must suffer more.
Right.
Because there is no gain without pain. And everything that is virtuous and praiseworthy has struggle attached to it. And we say, we don't know where you get this stuff, but we know, as you just said, you've got it. Mm-hmm. And we're offering every trick in our book, and there is an endless supply, to assist you in discovering that the path of least resistance is the way you're wanting to go. Now, I want to talk about what you've highlighted here because it's so important. Mm-hmm. We didn't say, don't focus. We're saying focus. We didn't say, don't examine the contrast and decide. We're saying, examine the contrast and decide. We're just saying that once you've decided, get out of the way of it and let the universe yield to you what you're asking for. We're not saying, be a wimp and don't decide what you want. In fact, we're saying something even greater. We're saying, be so deliberate about your thought that you are vigilant in every moment to the way that you feel so that you can guide your thoughts carefully and precisely. We're not saying just lay around and don't think and don't make it happen. We're saying be very active, be very aware. Let the guidance that is within you let you know what you're doing in every moment and constantly guide your thoughts to the path of least resistance. But the difference in the philosophy that we are knowing and what you are expressing back as something that humans are offering and expressing is humans believe that there is a source of badness that they must be vigilant against. Humans believe, as they look out into the sea of stuff that they don't want, that they can look at the thing that they say yes to and say yes and make it come, and then they can look at the thing that they shout no at and shout no and make it stay away. And we say, and that's because they do not understand law of attraction. And when you understand law of attraction and you understand that the only source is one of well-being, then you can relax into the idea of letting the well-being that is natural to you be. But it doesn't mean that you are not deliberate. It doesn't mean that you are not a director. You're helping us to express with greater clarity something that we've been wanting to express. And that is the battle that we feel within so many of you as you say, well, which is it? Am I the deliberate creator of my experience, or am I supposed to let go and let God? Mm-hmm. It's the age-old battle. Yep. Materialism versus spiritualism. In other words, how does it all fit together? And we say, you are extensions of that which is source, and you would not be here focused in this magnificent environment if your focus were not of huge value. And understanding law of attraction as we do, we know that as you focus, that even if you can't speak it, the desires or preferences that are born from your exposure to the experience have summoning power, and that all that is comes forth in response to your leading edge experience. So you are not only not broken, here to prove some sort of worthiness, you are on the leading edge that is taking all that is into this expanding universe. Your part in all of this is critical to the expansion of this universe. But the universe's expansion is happening whether you consciously allow your alignment to it or not, you see. Mm-hmm. And that's why we say you cannot help but conjure the new leading edge focal point. You can't help it. The contrast is going to make that happen. It just happens. It's a consequence of this magnificent universe in which we are all focused. But you do have the option of letting yourself go along with it or pinching yourself off. And so, here's the part that we are so excited to express here. While it is nice sometimes to have wanted something a long time ago and almost forgotten about it because it's been so long, and then to be bipping along, happy about some other thing that seems totally unrelated, and have that thing now manifest. Feels like it just dropped in out of the blue, out of the clear blue sky, you say. I hardly even remembered that I wanted that. And while that can be nice, it isn't nearly as nice as something that you are actively wanting and actively allowing into your experience. So you are always wanting to find this balance. In other words, we think that the optimum creating experience is to feel the contrast, feel the negative emotion of it, not so much that it really takes you into a painful place, but enough that you know that this thought that you are thinking right now is not a helpful thought. We think it is magnificent to set a goal that you know you can't reach and feel the angst of it feeling impossible for a moment until you talk yourself into believing it. Because we know the joy of the journey of talking yourself into believing it. And we know the thrill of watching things start to line up as you come closer and closer to believing it. We love to see that feeling within you as you begin to acknowledge that, hey, this manifestation is the next logical step. We love watching the manifestation flashpoint where just for a moment the impossible has happened. But we also know that if it feels too impossible, it can't happen. Mm-hmm. So we think that the thing that you are really grappling with is that quantum leap feeling of how can I get something that I really don't believe to happen so that I can have that sharp, expansive, yippee feeling, as opposed to gently bringing myself into the logical conclusion that anything that I want can be. Mm-hmm. And we know that as human beings, you like the drama of the quantum leap. Right. But in the long run, it is not who you are. It is not what you've come to live. In other words, we love watching you manage your vibration into compliance with your desires. And we love your desire, as it always does, staying just ahead of your belief. And then we love watching you bring your belief into compliance with your desire. It's the way your entire civilization has moved forward. Esther heard Jerry reading to her from something that he picked up the other day, talking about the fact that no one had run the 4-minute mile. No one had done it. And no one believed they could. That's why no one did. And then someone believed they could and did. And the next year, 100 more did. Mm-hmm. Because their belief moved into a place of allowing something that they had desired for a very long time. And so there is always something more for you to desire. We want you to relax into the rhythm. You get this? It's sort of like, don't you love eating when you are hungry? And wouldn't you feel bad if you never were hungry again? In other words, don't you like to be hungry to satisfy the hunger? Isn't there something delicious about that, you see? And so the same thing is true of the way the universe expands. The desire is the hunger that is easily satisfied. The desire is the hunger that is easily satisfied. And each of you gets to choose the rhythm of that. You get to decide how hungry you get before you experience the joy of the satisfaction of the hunger. But the universe is not set out to keep you hungry. The universe is aligned and assigned to keep you fed. And if it bothers you that that struggle just doesn't exist anywhere except in the mind of man, then so be it. That was good. So the art of allowing is about identifying what you want and then moving your mind into places that let it happen. You might call the art of allowing, if you want to get more down to it in the way you are accustomed to thinking it, finding the path of least resistance. So how could I find the path of least resistance? Now, we would rather call it the path of allowing than the path of least resistance. And yet, for a while, there is resistance, and there is more resistance and less resistance, and more resistance and less resistance. Because if there was no resistance, if there really was allowing, you would be living it. And so the fact that you're not yet allowing it means there is resistance. And so there's nothing wrong with calling it the path of resistance. So let's get as positive as we can by calling it the path of least resistance. How do you discover your path of least resistance? the path of least resistance feels less bad than the path of more resistance. So what you do is you feel your way. In other words, which feels less bad or which feels more good. In other words, you're feeling your way along the way. So, someone is sick. They go to a doctor. Someone else is sick. They don't go to a doctor. Who's right? They both could be right. It may be a path of least resistance for one to go to the doctor. They may have more belief in the doctor's bag of tricks than they do in their own. And so going to the doctor is the perfect thing for them to do. While the other may have grown up with someone who was killed by a doctor. Or at least that's the family story. He was fine. He went to the doctor, all over. Going to the doctor for him, a path of great resistance. So his wellness may come more easily without going to the doctor. So now here you are at the doctor. The doctor offers some medicine, maybe the path of least resistance. You may have beliefs about medicine, so it may not be the path of least resistance. What we're getting at here is if you will stop every moment along the way and remind yourself that your work is to take the path of least resistance. Now we have some questions with that in mind for you. Of these two choices, which would you choose? Something that feels good or something that feels bad? Of these two choices, which would you choose? Something that is true or something that is not true? Not hard. True feels better than not true. Feeling good feels better than not feeling good. But this is the most important question. Would you choose something that is true or something that feels good? Now, having listened through what we've been talking about here, you can feel that what feels good can be the path of less resistance. But it is not necessarily the path of least resistance, because sometimes you've been taught that if it is true, you should give your undivided attention to it. In other words, you should always tell the truth. And what we're wanting to say to you is if you keep focusing upon those things that are true, that you don't want to live, you will develop a vibrational tendency toward them. And in the process of doing that, you may be disallowing the wellness, the well-being. You may be disallowing who you really are to flow. So it is important to recognize that you were born with this guidance system. And the guidance system that is within you, oh, this is so important. The guidance system that is within you is there to show you your path of least resistance. The guidance system that is within you is to show you your path of allowing your connection to source energy. The guidance system that is within you is so present and so particular and so direct, so in the moment, so on the mark, that if you begin practicing some virtual realities with the intent of feeling your way to that which feels best, you will awaken within yourself a guidance that will help you to more accurately know, moment by moment, your path of least resistance. Now, what good is knowing the path of least resistance? It's the path to all that you seek. It's the path to your source. It's the path to your wellness. It's the path to everything that you've ever asked for. The path of least resistance, or the path of most allowance, is the good-feeling path whereby you allow all of the good that you so much want and deserve. Some worry that the path of least resistance will lead you right into hell. That the path of least resistance will lead you right into decadence. It will lead you right into all of the things that they truthfully do not want you to experience as they hammer at you the right, righteous road. And we say, they do not know your path. They cannot feel your path. They do not know your desires. They cannot know your heart. They do not know your connection. They cannot know the path for you. It is an individual thing that must be acknowledged in the moment. And it is our encouragement that you do not give up the supreme guidance that is within you for something outside of you that could not, for a moment, come close to guiding you with the sophistication and the knowing and the love and the source that really is yours.